Well, hello! In this lesson, we're going to be talking about array methods. Now, what's an array method? It's basically a thing that you could do to different arrays. Like sometimes, like with an array, you might want to count how many elements are in it. Or maybe you want to alphabetize them by sorting them. Or maybe you want to remove an element from it, right? So there's all types of different things that you want to do to an array, and there's functions, or methods as we call them, to do that. And they're already built into JavaScript, so that makes our lives a little bit easier. Now, before we get started, I do want to say this. There is a little code here that we should discuss. The first thing you see here is that there's a numbers array, all right, and has 5 numbers in it, okay? Then there's this function called display numbers. And what this does, you can read through it in your own time, is it just takes the numbers in the array and puts them on the web page, right? So if you see here, the numbers container is where all these numbers are, and it iterates through the array and adds each one of them to the screen. So that's why they're all here. And don't forget, if you make a function, you then have to call the functions over here. I'm calling the function, and I'm putting in numbers, which is the array that I want to put on the screen. Okay, so that's the starter code. Now, let's talk about what we're going to be doing today. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be making these 5 buttons work. All right, now the first one is we're going to add a number to the array. The second one is we're going to count how many things are in the array. We're going to sort the array. All right, which means we're going to alphabetize it. We're going to remove an element from the array, and we're going to square each number in the array. All right, so you're going to be learning a lot of different methods to be doing. Let's just talk about it. So the first one is the adding thing, right? So we have 5 numbers in our array already. We're going to add numbers to it, another number, and we're going to have it displayed. Let's start with this first one right here. All right, to do the add button, I'm going to have to first say this. Sorry, someone knocked on my door. Jeez, so unprofessional. We're going to have to make the button clickable, right? So the first thing to say, we're going to say let add button. All right, and I'm going to say document.query selector, you know, this fun stuff. We're going to get the ID of that button, so we'll go to index.html. We'll see that button is called add. We're going to go here, add, and then we're good. So we referenced it. Then we're going to add an event listener to it, so I'm going to say add button.add event listener. We're going to say we're going to listen for a click, and then I'm going to create a function called add number, okay? And that will be called when we click, all right? Now you might be remembering that the old method we used was we do this and that and blah, 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 all that stuff, right? We're going to move away from that. I think we're actually going to do it this way, which is just when you click something, it runs a function called add number. It's a little cleaner, and it also lets you like use the functions. You will have to create functions and get in practice with that. So okay, so now we have to create a function called add number. So we're going to say function add number, okay? And this function will do the following. It'll get the value of the input and then just add it to this array. All right. So first thing you have to do is add the number to the input. Get the number from the input. So I'll say let number equal document.query selector. Okay. Hashtag, let's get the ID of that input. It is num. Okay. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to say num. And then I'll say here, okay, well, so dot value. And now we got the value of it. Now, good practice is to console log it. Let's see if this even works. So this is a good pause moment. Let's see if all our code works. Remember, we just want to make it so when we press this button, it console logs the number that's in the input. So I'm going to press play. I'm going to show this, and then let's take a look. So if I push 6 here and I press play, I should see 6 on the screen. Oops, sorry. If I press 6 and I press add, it should see 6. All right, it's working. So now that we got the value here, right? We got the value. Let's add it to the array. So what I'm going to do here is say numbers, which is the array, okay, that's the name of the array, dot push, and that is the method to add something to an array. So I'm going to push a number in, and what I'm going to push in is the number. All right, that's this number right here. Now, what this does is push adds whatever element to the end of the array. So whatever number I put in will be added at the end. It'll be the next thing in there. All right, now let's console log this. Console.log our numbers, which is the array. Number is the number. Numbers is the whole array. Let's press play. Let's press 6. I'm going to press add, and let's see here. You'll see here 8, 7, 12, 4, 10, and 6 have all been added. Now you see how the 6 has a quotation around it? Now that means it's a string rather than a number. We kind of want these to actually be numbers in here. So what I'm actually going to do is when I push it, I'm going to actually put the word number here. And what this does is actually converts a string to a number. All right, so that'll make it all numbers. It'll just make our knife a little prettier. You won't have to do this in the lab, but for here it's important. So let's try this again. I'm gonna press 6, press add, and you'll see that doesn't have quotes anymore. 8, 7, 12, 4, 10, and 6. Now, if you notice here, I just want to show you guys something, that it doesn't show up on the screen here. This is still the same. That's because to make this update on the screen, we have to rerun this function. So I'm going to call this function again, right? So after I've console logged it, I'm going to say this display numbers, right? And what this will do is reset this, this list right here on the screen. Okay, I'm going to press 6 again, add, and notice how I get all the numbers and 6. All right, we reran this function, and what it did was it went through the array, it put every number on the screen, and that's why it's updated. So every time I put a number in here, it'll keep adding and working very well. Okay, awesome. Love it. All right, let's move on to our second button, right? So we're going to count how many things are in them. So let me close this now. I'm going to hide it. Okay. Now, this one, I just want to count how many things are in the array. Now, this function, once again, I'm just going to create an event lister for the button. I'm going to run a function that counts how many numbers in the array. Simple. So I'm going to say let count button equal document.query selector. Okay, and let's go to index.html. It's called count. Okay, so we're going to go back here. I'm going to count it, hashtag count. Okay, I'm going to say count button dot add event listener, and then we're going to say when I click, I'm going to run a function. I'm going to call it count array. Okay. Actually, let's count. I don't know, count numbers. That seems to be the theme here. So we'll say count numbers, whatever. And that's the function that I need to create. So let's create a function called count numbers. Okay. And this one's very easy. So what I'm just going to do is say let count equal. And to count how many things in an array, we've done this before, right? It's just the dot length thing. So what I can just do is say this. It's numbers dot length. Okay. So what I can just do now is let's just console log count, make sure it's working. All right, let's press play. And if you look here, let's see, open up the console again. If I press 6, let's press count, and you'll see that there's 5. Oh, sorry, let's add it and then count. You'll see there's 6 things in there. And if you look 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, let's say I add another number there, add, right? So now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If I press count, notice that says 7. Now I do want this to show up on the screen where it says total, right? This should update to 7 when I press count. So what I want to do here is when I press the count, with this count numbers function should also change what we see here. So what I want to go back to here is see here. See, this is where it's displayed. What I'm going to do is reference this and then change the text there. So let's see, the ID is total. So I'm going to say this. Oh, wrong place. We got to go back to our count function. I'm going to say let total equal document.query selector. I think it was total. Let's just check that again. I have a bad memory. Yes, total was the ID of where that's the thing displayed. And then I'll just say this total.inner HTML is equal to, do backticks. All right, I'm going to say the word total, and then I'm going to interpolate the count. Ready? So let's press play. All right, now there's 5, so if I press count, nothing interesting happens. But let's say I add another number. Let's add 10 to the mix, and let's count it. Notice how it becomes set. Let's do 40. Let's add that to the mix. This should say 7. And you see that this counts the total number in the array. So this method, length, just counts how many things is in the array. So we've learned about push, and we've learned about length. Now let's do sort. All right, now I'm going to move a little faster because you kind of get the point here. So I'm going to sort the array now. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to kind of copy and paste here because I'm being lazy now. I'm going to call this sort button, right? This is called sort. We can double check our work here. See, it's called sort. Here we go. We're going to say, well, let's just copy and paste again. Let's really go for it here, right? If we're going to do it, let's do it. So we're going to say sort button dot add event listener, right? We're going to run a function called sort numbers. Okay, and I'm going to create the function sort numbers. Okay, and this is pretty straightforward. The way you're going to sort it is you're just going to say this. numbers, which is the name of the array, dot sort. And what this really does is alphabetize. It's less used for numbers. It's more used for like words. So what it'll do is alphabetize it. So there's a little weird behavior here, but this has now sorted the array. So check it out. If I go like this, if I do display, let's just copy and paste. Why am I doing this whole thing? Display numbers. Here we go. Check it out. I'm going to display the numbers here. And if I press play, check it out. Oh, sort numbers is numbers. Okay. I had to get this to match that. That's why I got this error. Okay, so check it out. So let's say I add the number 9 here. Okay. Now I want to sort these numbers. Check it out. Now notice how it's sorted in a weird way. 10 and 12 go first, and it's 4, 7, 8, and 9. What it's doing is actually alphabetizing, because 1 comes first, then 4, 7, 8, 9. So if you look at it just the first numbers, then yes, that would go first. So it's not a way of making numbers go least to greatest, but it is a way of alphabetizing. So it's really helpful for the lab you're going to be doing. Sort alphabetizes for you. All right. Now let's do a remove. Okay. So what we're going to do here is a remove button. Once again, I'm going to really just kind of start copy and pasting a bit more. So we're going to call this remove button. Okay. We're going to say remove. That's the ID. If you check it, just trust me on this one. Now we're going to say remove button dot add event listener. When we get a click, we're going to use remove numbers as our function. Let's create the function. Function. See, you're getting used to making functions now, right? Remove numbers. And what we're going to say is this numbers dot splice. Okay. And the way splice works is you got to give it two things: the starting index and how many numbers be deleted. So, for example, let's say I wanted to delete 8 and 7. What I would say is I would start with 0, because I'm starting at index 0. That's the first thing in the array, right? Index 0. And then I want 2 numbers to be deleted. So here we go. And if you look here, once again, we're going to display the numbers. Let's take a look here. Let's press play. Okay. I'm going to remove. And notice how it deleted those 2 numbers, 8 and 7 were gone. So this deleted. Now I don't want to delete the first number, so I'm just going to say 1. Okay, so we're going to do this again. Okay, I'm going to remove, and notice how I just lost the first one, and I can keep removing one at a time. All right. So let's just go over the things that we've learned so far. Okay, there's 4 methods that we've learned. Now there's many more. I'm just showing you 4 of them. The first one is push. That's how you add to an array. So numbers.push, and you put the number in. We learned about length. That tells you how long an array is. We learned about sort, which alphabetizes. And we learned about splice. Remember, it is the index that you want to remove something from, and then how many things from there on do you want to remove. Now, the last one is a square button, where I want to do something to each thing in the array. Now, this is a little bit more interesting. All right. What we're going to do is use something called a for each loop. Now, first, let's make the button clickable. So, once again, I'm going to call this square button. The ID is square. Try to take my word for it. Okay. Square button. We are going to do this. Square button. That add event listener. We're going to run a function called square numbers. Okay. Let's write the function. Function square numbers. And this is where it gets interesting. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each element and square it and put it into a new array. So check this out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say let squares, okay? And I'm creating an empty array. Now what I'm going to do is square each number, and what I have to do is go through all of the elements in the array. An easy way to do this is to do numbers.for each, all right? Now I'm going to say numbers.for each. Now check it out. I'm going to do num, which is like each item. I guess a more traditional way of saying this is item, okay? For each item, I'm going to do something to it. And what I'm going to say is this. I'm going to say let square equal item times item. That will multiply whatever the number is by itself, and then we're going to push this into squares. So I'm going to say squares.push. I'm going to square, so I'm going to put this here, square. Now let's just talk about for each. Now this is also on the APCSP, so it's good to know. What this is the array, and for each means go through each item in the array. All right, so the item is each item. And so what we're doing is for each one, we're multiplying the item by itself, and then we're pushing it into here. So square is the number multiplied by itself. Squares is the array. Okay? Now the last thing we have to do is display it. Let's see if this worked. Okay, display numbers. In this one, we're not displaying numbers, we're displaying squares, because this squares each one. Okay, this is the moment of the truth here. All right, let's try adding a number. We're going to add the number 5. Sweet. Okay, let's count it. There's 6 numbers now. We'll sort it. 1, 1, 1, 4, 5, 7, 8. We'll remove that 10, get it out of there. And finally, let's square it. And notice how that squared all the numbers. If you didn't see it, I'll show you one more time. That should be 64, 49, 144, 16, and 100. You'll see that that's all done. All right. We've learned a lot in this lesson. This is pretty much exactly what you're doing for the lab, with a few more spicier questions. And yeah, that's it. Good luck. I wish you all the best.